I'll just read out some choice. I just went to Nick's Telegram and typed in the word infiltrate to pick out some choice posts. So one here, Nick Fuentes. Um, what a lot of proponents of infiltration don't understand is that as far as you get inside the system, the second that you decide to reveal your true power level, you will get kneecapped, rug pulled, decapitated, exiled, censored, entire power base blown up instantly. This is why we must build something parallel. This is why Nick Fuentes' America First must always exist and grow stronger.
Yeah,
Uh,
Tarnstein always had a great quote about entryism, right? Which you probably understand from the kind of the leftist version, or their kind of term for infiltration traditionally. And he'd say, all this talk about entryism, and all it ends up with you is getting bent over and entered. You just get turned, you get completely turned into a subservient gear in the machine, and it happened constantly with infusionism. Uh, uh, Ben Wattenberg wrote a great memoir as an arch neoconservative, a founding member of neoconservatism, talking about how most of the functionaries within the Reagan era State Department by the mid 1980s came out of the Youth Socialist League. They were former Yipsels. So just like every other Trotskyite that ended up in the Republican Party, they just shifted. They completely shifted by midlife. They went from being yippies to yuppies. And that's what entryism means. Like, you grow comfortable. I mean, in practice, you grow comfortable, and it's like Tony Blair or Bill Clinton as a student radical in the late 60s, ending up being the standard bearers for globalism in their parties by the time they're in midlife. That's what the entryists think that they're going to avoid, and they never do. You just become subservient to capital and power. So yeah, Nick, he got the vision. He gets it, and he's seen the failures of all these people before him, and
yeah,
that's
that
why it's
that
time
post
for
I read
something
out was
new.
from the 19th of December 2021, so it's not like a particularly new idea. But also on the 17th of September last year, Fuentes posted a screenshot. I remember I reposted this at the time because it was a quote from Darren Beattie. Now, Darren Beattie, obviously, he's Jewish, and I know there's some people in the scene that aren't huge fans of Darren, but he is he's correct in what he says here. Nick screen caps from an article that he wrote or an interview that he did, um, uh, and he just titled it "Darren Beattie on the Elitist LARP." And Darren Beattie said, my sense is that the anti-democratic elitist critique can also go a bit too far and become somewhat ridiculous. I mean, where is the critique? Is Trump elite or not? And insofar as it's adjacent to this approach, of quietly recapturing the institutions, infiltrating the elites without rocking the boat too much, etc., it can turn into a bit of a LARP and transition to a kind of dangerous acquiescence or quietism that provides comfort to people who are red-pilled but not based, if you know what I mean. To be red-pilled means you know the facts, but to be based means you're a creature capable of withstanding the coordinated social pressures smothering you if you dare to challenge the system publicly and aggressively. And those are very different things. And so I think whilst there's some truth to this idea, it can also function as a rationalization for people who are constitutionally red-pilled but not based. Take tech bros. There are a lot of these tech people are very weak. They don't have what it takes to confront the system. You saw this with this was obviously before Musk took over Twitter. You saw this with Musk trying to buy Twitter. He dipped his toes in the arena and then ran back with his tail between his legs and all these billions of dollars as soon as he realized what that entails. I'm sorry, guys. Obviously, that's kind of dated, but doesn't really apply. But so he says, yeah, there's value to the elitist message, but there's also a danger, and we should be careful in the way we promote it precisely because it's so attractive to certain people who are essentially weak and want to be reassured there's nothing wrong with inaction. And so that would be my chief objection to this critique, although I fully acknowledge there's a lot of validity to it as well. The critique of like elitists saying, the problem with populism is like, power, has a kind of top-down structure, blah, blah, blah. And I say this all the time. I said this in kind of my arguments with academic agent over last year, that it's like this kind of like populism versus elitism thing. It's a false dichotomy. Like you need both. You can't think and the thing is, like, when you raise grassroots power, that creates a hierarchy, and you kind of you kind of end up creating like organic elites out of that. Um, and so like people need to kind of stop thinking in this like we see the logic on display here with John Doyle, and and so on. This like, oh, we're just working within the system. That's what we have to do.
Well, credit to Beattie, he's like the rarest thing in MAGA adjacent or Bannon adjacent politics. Unlike Bannon, Darren does not hide that he has an intellectual pedigree. And it's something that you and I can understand. You can understand what Darren's talking about. He's a Heideggerian. You can read Strauss and you can understand Gottfried's take and understand why Gottfried and Darren got along for so long, or why Darren Dr. DB got bounced out of the White House ostensibly for attending a Gottfried conference with Spencer. He is a real, genuine intellectual. And he also, he's close with the Arctos guys as well. So he's not some doofus like media commentator. The guy has a deep reserve of understanding politics at a fundamental and philosophical level from which to draw upon. And it's very rare at his level.